Hey, you guys. Welcome to today's video. Wow, what a roller coaster it's been. So before I dive in, I want to talk about the different controversies around what to take, how much to take it off. Depending on who you follow. It's like you see this thing about take vitamin C. No, don't take vitamin C. Take vitamin D. No, don't take vitamin D. Vitamin A, yes, no, right? And so I just thought this, if this drives me crazy, then you must be even more so, especially when you don't have the time to dedicate to research maybe the way I do. As a single person who is trapped in my own house right now, when you're homeschooling or you're just having a lot of other people in the house with you, sharing a house and all that. So anyway, so I thought I'll dive into that just because I want to know for myself. I want to know it for my family and friends, but I also feel very responsible for the information that we disseminate here on Hormones Balance to you as a community. So I just want to preface by saying that, first of all, like, I'm not a doctor, right? So everything that I'm sharing here with you is collected from practitioners and doctors who I love and trust. Combine that with research from them and research some of that on my own, and combine it with a bit of common sense. Because to be honest with you, one of the things that the biggest challenges that we face with Corona is the fact that we don't really have a lot of certainty to have answers to everything. This is the reason why people will. That's part of the reason I'm going to talk about, like, vitamin C, for example, how much it can be a controversy. Because it's on one hand it's highly recommended, on the other hand there's some research shows that potentially could be harmful. So which one is true? We don't know, because we haven't had an outbreak like this before. So before I dive in and go any further, I want to just ask you guys, how are you holding up? And are you embracing this new life as sort of a new normal? Or are you just really feeling trapped and frustrated and angry and lost and all of those emotions, overwhelmed maybe? So let me know. I'm kind of getting used to the new normal in some ways. I get very depressed when I go to the supermarket. It's just like how things are done. But I try not to read news too much. I did that yesterday because I was preparing for this call today. I spent hours researching, and I was up till very late. And inevitably, when you search around and you start looking at a lot of news and stuff, and so that kind of really got me depressed. And I didn't sleep as well today. I'm pretty sure a big part of it is the anxiety that all of that is causing. So, but I want to make the best out of it, and just want to give you a quick recap. This is like probably the fourth Facebook Live I do after the outbreak, and so been trying to be as supportive as I can for you guys. And we did everything from, the first one was about like the things that we know are working in terms of micronutrients, vitamins, and then we also did another one, which is how do you deal with anxiety during this time. And so, including breathing exercises, herbs, different supplements that you can incorporate. And then I did another Facebook Live on how to lower inflammation in your body. That's, I think, a really big one, because when you lower inflammation, then your immune system can function better, right? So, and just now I finished doing a Facebook Live and I made this recipe here. And that's, we're gonna call it the antiviral garlic syrup. But as you can see probably from the color, it's not just garlic, but also it's got a couple of other things, which is, one is ginger and the other one is orange, including the peel. And you're gonna be eating the peel too, you guys. It's not just the pulp, but also the, oh, it smells really good. I just made it and it's got like this really nice strong fragrance. So this is chopped up garlic, ginger, and lemon. Sorry, not lemon. This is orange. And you want the rind in it. I know it doesn't taste or sound compelling, but it's actually really good. You want to do 3 teaspoons of that a day, okay? And I'm going to talk about it, why is it so important, what's in it that makes me encourage you to do something like that. Okay. So I also have some things to share. That's why I'm doing it in a way today that will enable me to share some resources with you. Okay. So let me just go over to, just want to see what questions are coming in. Tyler is here today helping me with your questions. And she's going to be popping a lot of links there as well. So Shannon asking, how long does it last on a counter? Really great question. So she's talking about the garlic syrup, antiviral garlic syrup, which is called it. So actually kind of forever, to be honest with you, because garlic is super antimicrobial, right? So ain't gonna develop any mold. You got honey in here, which can on the shelf can stay forever, right? As long as you don't put wet things in there and or your saliva. So the one thing you don't want to do, like just now I had a teaspoon. I don't want to be dipping that in again. So you don't double dip, right? And then and it's got orange in the peel. So there's a little bit of water from the orange. So that's the thing that can go bad, but the peel again is hugely antimicrobial. And then you've got ginger. Nothing much is going to happen. So actually on the counter, as long as it's fairly covered and you know, it can actually kind of last forever. You don't want to be putting that in the fridge just because then it hardens up and it's really hard to scoop it out. So, so Deborah is saying it's a new normal, trying to continue learning as much as I can about health, praying more. Nice. Yeah. Okay, so why don't we just dive in and let me just give you a rundown of what I want to cover today. So I want to talk about the vitamin C dosage controversy. I want to talk about vitamin D. And again, there's a disagreement on that here. Vitamin A, take it or don't take it. Zinc, how much? And I've got some new recommendations for you on how to spread it. I want to talk about garlic. That's one of the beauties in this lovely recipe here. And it's just absolutely phenomenal. And this, I don't want to, and by the way, everything I'm going to be talking about, this is from a clear perspective to connection to the coronavirus, right? So it's not just like overall good health, but that too, but it's very aligned with what you're looking for right now with corona. Then we have citrus peel. I want to talk about just the whole thing, including the white parts, galangal, turmeric, propolis, whether yes or no, elderberry, and the whole cytokine storm. We're going to talk about melatonin. This is a huge one, you guys. I'm going to talk about it earlier to make sure that you do hear this. Quercetin, we're going to talk about nettles, copper, and then I've got some new videos for you. I want to share about handling food when you say go shopping, bring it back. It's a great video the CDC just posted last night and how to disinfect everything when you get home. Okay, so we got a pretty full video today. If you need to drop off, do so. You can always watch the replay with us later. Okay, so let's get going. Vitamin C. Okay, so there is this researcher called Chris Masterjohn, and he wrote a report, and that I think got to Chris Kresser. So people that are very respected in the community. That basically the research that, has found that the too high of a vitamin C doses will be interfering with an interferon, which is the one that is fighting your coronavirus. And that is obviously an issue, right? So he recommends something as little as 150 milligrams versus like what I was recommending earlier based on the research, and the other recommendations is 2 grams. So we're talking about 2,000 milligrams versus 150 milligrams, right? So, like 12, 13 times more. That's a big difference. So there is some research that he has done that shows that because it overstimulates interferon, that's part of the immune system, and that isn't good for the virus. Okay. On the other hand, what do we have in China, for instance, is that there's kind of clinical trials going on that I'm actually on the list that I'm just observing and seeing what comes out of that, because they're doing IV therapies right now in China using as much as 12 to 24 grams of vitamin C, and that's through IVs. So this is still being evaluated. We don't have any reports as of yet what's going on. So, I think there is these arguments about the dose, right? Is at the end of the day, I think, if you're taking a higher dose and like, for example, the 2 grams, and that's what I'm doing, and that makes you nervous, right? Because somebody you trust says that you should not be doing more than 150 milligrams. And in fact, most get most of it out of food, which you can quite easily. then then I don't want to be adding anxiety to your protocol, because that's really the last thing you want right now. One experiment you can do is, for example, take off vitamin C or lower the dose and see how you feel. I did an experiment a few days ago where I got off all my supplements. For 2 days, I didn't take anything. And I will tell you that I wasn't feeling great. I was feeling like I was coming down with something. In fact, I don't know if you guys relate to this, but I feel like there's so many people who are kind of like on the verge of getting sick, kind of walking around achy because of the lack of testing. Who knows who really has it? And as you know, is part of the big problem with Corona right now is that we have insufficient testing. But I'm just wondering whether, and it's not just Corona. I mean, the flu is all around us anyway, and you can catch a cold too. So I'm just wondering whether all of us we have our immune system a little bit suppressed at this point. And I feel like definitely by taking the supplements out, my immune system wasn't as well supported. And I did start feeling very achy. And I started taking my supplements again. I didn't do it like one by one to differentiate or to isolate, to figure out exactly which supplement is playing what role. And I'm not quite willing to do that. It's just too complicated. But, I think you're going to just make your own judgment. I feel that, from a purely, also just to share with you, Designs for Health, which is this really wonderful supplement company, organized a webinar a couple of days ago with 3 renowned doctors, including Dr. David Brady, who I really love his work, as well as Dr. Danamo, which you might have heard of him as the blood type diet, right? They are practical, but also incredibly well researched. And they felt like, go for vitamin C. It shouldn't be an issue. So you have these 2 contradicting information. To be honest with you, I don't think anybody has the answers. Anybody who claims they have the answers or with certainty is a dangerous person. So, what I'm doing is I'm taking it in somewhere in between step, and I'm doing 2 grams a day. Like I said, if this makes you too nervous to do that much, just lower it down. Just maybe go to 600, do 1,000, and it's gonna still give you some support. I think it's gonna do you more good than it does than hurt. The one thing I would like to do in today's call is actually I'm gonna share my screen here with you for just a second, and I want to show you this. One of the things that we're going to be sharing with you is a Dropbox link. If we could, I had to, sorry about that. Let me just stop sharing for a second. I need to get into my Dropbox. Tyler, if we could share the Dropbox folder, that would be great. I've put in a few documents there for you just to maybe gain a little bit of confidence, but also for those of you who are researchers yourself and you want to get a little bit more information, then that's a really great place to take a look at a few things. And, maybe you are a practitioner yourself. So, okay, I'm ready to share my screen now. And so this is a document that was shared with me from Dr. David Brady, and this is the document is called Review of Micronutrients and Immune System Working in Harmony to Reduce the Risk of Infection. Obviously, this was not written for coronavirus per se. As you can see, this was written in 2019, accepted in January 2020. So this is all before Corona went wild. This is coming from the Linus Pauling Institute. I really like this institute. For those of you who are like researchers and stuff, like you go to their website as part of the Oregon State University. And like if you need to pull out information, for example, what's good about garlic, right? You get the science and you get the practical recommendations, some culinary recommendations. It's an amazing site. Anyway, the reason why I'm sharing this document with you is because there is one part here that looks at the different aspects of the immune system. And I'm not going to pretend like I know all of this, because I don't. Because the immune system is incredibly, incredibly complex. People say to me like, oh, hormones are complicated. I'm like, wait till you see the immune system. But the point is that what I want to share with you today, just very briefly in this, is that is the whole idea of how they look at on different aspects of the immune system. So for example, here you have on the left side here, you have the maintenance of structure and functional integrity of mucosal cells, which are incredibly important right now when it comes to coronavirus. the innate barrier is super, super important, and to maintain that, because that's one of the issues that happens with corona, is that our innate immune system collapses, which is kind of surprising, like no other. You have another aspect, which is like differentiation, proliferation, functioning, movement of innate immune cells, right? And then you have antimicrobial effects, and then you have the role of inflammation, and the list goes on and on here. So it's a pretty lengthy document. What I want to just go back to the beginning, when I want to show you from what I'm getting away from this, is that vitamin C is pretty much in every one of them. Okay, plays a role here. So does vitamin A, so does vitamin D. We're going to talk about those in a second. Zinc is right in here, right? You know, you don't need to supplement with iron. You can get that if you are eating a complete, if you're eating meat, especially liver. So look at that, right? If you talk about, again, the innate immune cells here, you have vitamin C here again. And so when I went through the document, vitamin C plays a role in pretty much every one of them, not pretty much every one of these aspects of the immune system. And so my very practical conclusion to this is that I feel like, you know, that 600 to 2000 milligrams is probably a dose is not going to hurt anyone. And I'm going to be keeping it to 2000 at this point. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing in a moment for a moment, and then we're going to come back to some other documents I want to share with you today that I think are really interesting. So vitamin D, there's another disagreement on that as well in terms of dosage, how much to dose. And, you know, one of the common sense, I think, observations you can make about viruses, like, why are we getting that in winter and not in summer, right? Like viral infections. Why do we get colds in winter and not in summer? And one of the correlations, I'm not saying causations, just correlations that you can definitely observe, is the fact that when we are in winter, we have a lot less vitamin D because we don't have as much sun exposure, right? Unless you're supplementing a lot. And but a lot of people don't. That's why 80% of the population is severely vitamin D deficient. And so that could be one of the reasons why we're so much more prone. And so for that reason, you know, vitamin D is, again, there's some research that shows that too high of a dose can be problematic. You know, when I look at the document that I shared with you just now, again, vitamin D is in front and center in every one of the aspects of that immune system. And for that reason, I'm personally not gonna back off on that. And I'm still gonna continue with my 10,000 units. I'm on a higher dose because I have a genetic mutation that's called VDR. And what it does is basically it closes up the receptors to receiving vitamin D, even from some sun exposure. And so I need higher doses. You know, if you have an autoimmune disease like Hashimoto's, for example, you want to be your vitamin D levels between 60 to 80 nanograms per milliliter. So that's it's in your lab report if you have done blood testing. One of the ways to know you're low in vitamin D is that, you know, the part here where your ribs connect. If you have a lot of pain here in those joints when you touch them and you press on them gently, that could be a sign of vitamin D as well. So if you haven't tested, I do highly recommend to go and get it tested. But, you know, I've spoken to a number of different practitioners also from that workshop that I attended with Designs for Health, which, by the way, that was not a product pitch at all. It was all purely just creating a platform for an exchange from very three talented doctors. And so the recommendation, again, was to do at least 2,000 units a day, and making sure you're in the 60 to 80 range as well. Vitamin A, that's an interesting one because you can very easily overdose, and overdosing does have a lot of toxicity issues, including you can start losing your hair. And so on the other hand, I feel like vitamin A is so easy to find in foods. Like, for example, if you're doing sweet potato, carrots, they're loaded with vitamin A, but also, you know, liver, believe it or not, liver is actually really high in vitamin A. And all the liver, so whether it's chicken liver, whether it's calf liver, whether it's lamb liver, any liver. And it's interesting because I went to Whole Foods this morning to, you know, buy ingredients for doing the demo for this, and all the meat produce are behind the counter, so you have to go through a clerk through a sales attendant to get your, you know, sausage or whatever. And the only thing that was still in the fridge were chicken livers. No one eats that stuff. So I stocked up because my dogs love it and I love it too. And, you know, if you know how to cook livers, and I have some great recipes in my cookbook, just learn how to cook it. It's really awesome. So, so I'm not a proponent of supplementing vitamin A, but if you're keeping your diet rich in those foods, then you should be good to go. Zinc, thank goodness there is a great consensus on this here that the dose should be about 50 milligrams a day. You don't want to be higher than that because it is a metal, so just to be mindful of that. One of the researches that I found, which I thought was really interesting, and I'll pass it on to you, it might be a good idea to be spreading that zinc for throughout the day. So for example, you could do 3 doses of 15 milligrams each. So 15, 15, 15. So that gives you 45 milligrams. So that's a nice final dose. Or you can be doing 10 milligrams 4 times a day. You know, I don't know about you, but I have no time for doing 4 times, but I definitely can do 3. So for that, you can get, for example, if you're getting zinc, for those of you who got zinc from us, and by the way, our vitamin C and zinc are getting back in stock in 3 days time. So we are going to be starting shipping. So you should be getting that in the first week of April. Okay. And so, for example, I'm using the zinc from our store. So it's basically what I do is I just open a capsule and I just take a little bit of it 3 times a day now. So that's generally a great idea to do that kind of spreading of spacing of supplements throughout the day rather than be chugging everything down, because you basically get a better absorption when you do that. Okay, the body can only absorb so much at a time. Okay, the next thing, actually, let me jump on to melatonin, because this is one of the really, really fascinating ones that I want to talk about. I have not talked about it before, and I think it's time that I do, because it really is quite fascinating. So it is again in the Dropbox link that we're gonna share with you, and I want to show you this chart here on melatonin connection with age, right? You can see how melatonin peaks in early childhood, and then it continues to decline as we age. And look at that, right? How low melatonin is in older people. Well, as you all know, those people here in the 60s and 70s and beyond are the ones who are also the most vulnerable ones to coronavirus, right? So when I saw this chart, I was like, oh my gosh, I really need to look into this more. And so, yeah, so melatonin is definitely one of those that upregulates our immune system so much and becomes antiviral. And it doesn't have to be complicated at all. Like, you don't need to do huge doses of it. Just doing 3 milligrams a day is good enough. There's a nice balance between not overdosing on melatonin. I mean, some people are talking about 20 milligrams. And I've asked on the conference, on the webinar, about the dosage, and they said, you know, it really doesn't have to be that much. Even the results of 3 milligrams are amazing. The interesting thing is that when you take 5 milligrams and above, this is when your pineal gland stops producing your own melatonin. So remember, the melatonin is produced in a pineal gland. That's your third eye. It's a little gland behind there, that produces melatonin. So you don't want to do more than that. But also, a couple of other things you can do to naturally stop producing melatonin is, number one, is turn off all the lights or artificial lights 2 hours prior to going to bed, because melatonin needs darkness to be produced. The other thing to remember is melatonin is made from serotonin, right? And serotonin is produced in your gut. And so, you know, as much as we are talking a lot about which supplement and stocking up on toilet paper and, you know, and hand cleansers and all that stuff, sanitizers, it's also really important to remember that at the end of the day, your immune system also starts off with your digestion. And so, you know, having a really healthy digestion during this time and doing the elimination diet, listen to my video that I did on the elimination diet, on the how to lower inflammation, but just getting on a highly anti-inflammatory diet, cut out all the gluten, cut out all sugar, cut out all dairy at this point, right? It's going to help your gut health, and then production of serotonin becomes more efficient. When you have serotonin, then you can produce melatonin in much higher doses. So yeah, so you can get melatonin. I looked up online and it's not sold out. The other thing is that we have also a product in our store called Sleeper Store, and it comes with a few other really nice things, including L-theanine and chamomile and passion flower and valerian. And so it is a sleeping aid, but without like making you drowsy or anything like that. So it's got melatonin 3 milligrams, and then all these other herbs as well. So I thought I'll share this with you because this is I think it's a really powerful thought, just to realize like, oh yeah, you know, as melatonin drops, we are becoming much more susceptible to the virus. Okay, so let me go back to my notes. Yeah, the next thing I want to talk about is garlic. And so let's shift gears a little bit and like go towards the food space. Not many arguments on the food space, which is really cool. So two things I'm really excited to share with you. One is, you know, I mean, as an herbalist, we work with garlic all the time, right? That's one of our big tools to incorporate garlic. And you know, but so we know it is an antimicrobial, and we know it is something that helps cardiovascular health, and we know it helps with it's carcinogenic, it's protective of carcinogen, all the cancer causing stuff. Sorry, I've been talking since 6 o'clock this morning, actually, so you have to forgive me. But you know, but then the latest thing that just came out, and that's part of the reason why I decided to make this recipe, is that garlic is also an ACE2 receptor blocker, which is phenomenal. So if you are not on my mailing list, I will just share this with you. And if you are on my mailing list, then it's a little repeat. ACE2 receptor is the receptor that allows for the virus to come into the cell and cause all that havoc. The virus on itself is pretty much just a piece of code of the DNA code, and doesn't have a life of its own. It doesn't have its own, you know, a cell to live off, right? What it does is basically like a parasite. It lives on something else, and how it gets into the cell is through the ACE2 receptor. It's like a door. Think of it, you know, that it's the door. You can either open it or close it or keep it ajar, right? And then it's like this nasty thing that comes in, and it just like does this total havoc in your house, turns everything upside down, and then leaves, right? And so that's exactly what happens, is that it's up to us to either close that door or keep it wide open, right? And the ACE2 receptor is exactly doing that. And one of the beautiful things about garlic that I have just found is that it is an ACE2 blocker. So it closes that door for the virus to come in. Really wonderful stuff. If you watch the video, there's a couple of pointers I want to just give you, and I'm going to go through everything, but a couple of pointers in order to get, so the substance that has all the medicinal properties is called allicin. And allicin only works when you crush the garlic, and then that's when you release allinase. Anything that ends with an ACE is the enzyme. Allinase is released upon crushing and leaving it there for 10 minutes for full potency. After that is when you want to chop it up and then put that into the solution here. The other thing is, for those of you who are making bone broths, and I hope you do, then if you're making your own bone broth, do not put the garlic right at the beginning of cooking, because 6 minutes of cooking, high temperature, is going to call allicin. So if all these properties that I was telling you about, allicin has to be in a raw form, allicin only exists in a raw form of a garlic. The minute you're cooking for more than 6 minutes, it gets damaged. Okay, so making a bone broth, just crush the garlic, chop it up, put it in the bone broth right towards the end of cooking, or right at the end of cooking, and then enjoy it with the bone broth. That's how you get the full potency of it. Now in terms of the medicinal dose that we're talking here about is 1 clove per day of garlic. And it's not even, and they were talking about, I think 2 grams. And 2 grams of garlic is actually not even a very big clove. It's like a pretty, like, you know how you have those very slim cloves and you have those like big fat ones, like it's somewhere in between those two, okay? All right. The other thing I want to talk about, since we are on our garlic, antiviral garlic syrup, we call it, right, is citrus peel. So there is a paper that just came out literally on, I think on the 14th of March, so just like 10 days to 12 days ago, that talks about the incredible benefits of eating the peel of citrus. And the reason why you want to do that is because it contains a substance called hesperidin. So Hesperidin. Tyler, maybe post it for those people who are practitioners and they want to know more about it. Now, hesperidin is not present in the juice. It's orange juice or lemon juice is not present in the pulp. It's not even present in the green or yellow, sorry, the yellow or orange part of the peel. It's on the rind, on the white rind side of the rind itself, okay? The reason why I use the whole thing here in this recipe is because you get a lot of other benefits to, so let me just finish about hesperidin. So hesperidin, what it does is also an ACE2 receptor blocker, okay? And so citrus fruits were found to be the highest, followed by galangan. So you saw me doing a interview with the farm in Kauai a few days ago. Galangan is not easy to come by unless you go and shop in Asian markets, and which I don't even know where they're open right now. I guess they are. And so, and it's not easy to find. So one of the things that I loved about their curry blend is that it uses galangan in there, right? So another ACE receptor blocker. So I know it sounds weird, you know, when I was doing a video and my assistant Cheryl was here in the house and she's like behind the camera and she sets everything up for me and cleans the kitchen and all that, right? So I can just focus on the content. And when I didn't tell her what I was making or how was I gonna make it. So I'm just, you know, so I'm like chopping that orange and I'm like, you know, you're gonna be eating the whole thing with the rind. And she looks at me like this, like, you know, like with the eyes screaming, what are you talking about, woman? Like, are you crazy? And I know, like, you know, a month ago, if somebody told me, Magdalena, you're going to be eating the rind of an orange, I'd be like, crazy. But, you know, I think Corona is like something that has made us do a lot of new things that we haven't done before. So, and then I let Cheryl try it because she's a bit of a picky eater. So I let Cheryl try a teaspoon of this and she said it was phenomenal. Like it tastes really, really good, even though she doesn't quite like ginger, which is in here. So ginger is in here as well. And so we're going to be developing a recipe and post it for you guys, but really don't let this stop you. We need a few more days to you know, photograph it and blah, blah, blah. But it's it really is like I've used probably 10 cloves of garlic in here. Then I used half an orange that's just chopped up. So you can see just, you know, you see the slices. And then I use like a big knob of maybe like that size of ginger. That is again chopped up. It's in here. And that's it. And then put honey on top of it. So it's really not a complicated one. So anyway, I love this. And part of the reason also I love keeping the colorful part of the rind is because it contains the limonene, which detoxifies your liver. But that's not what we're here about today. But you know what? No harm, right? Everybody needs a little bit of support. The same thing goes for galangal that I mentioned. Galangal also is an ACE2 receptor. And that's why, and that you find that in the curry blend. That's the reason why, you know, we stopped all sorts of promotions, introducing any kind of partners we had in the pipeline for you. And we just want to focus on really supporting you through this time. But I decided to do it with Kauai Pharmacy just because their curry blend has got turmeric, anti-inflammatory, galanga, kaffir lime with leaves, which are absolutely amazing. They also have moringa, which is super anti-inflammatory. It's crazy how anti-inflammatory it is. And so that's why I talked about it. Turmeric contains hesperidin, which is ACE2 receptor. And yeah, quite frankly, you can just chop up some turmeric. Don't let it hold you back, and put some turmeric in here as well. I don't know about your stores, you guys, but my supermarkets, like I went to 3. That was a week ago though. I didn't try it today because I had to rush back to get ready for this. But I couldn't find turmeric. Everybody was like, no, sold out. Okay, let me come to the next one, which is propolis. So that one I would tread with a little bit more caution this time. So I would suggest, if you, especially for those of you who bought propolis from us, I would say if you're having a bit of a, you know, scratchy throat, if you have it's a cold, it's not a flu, then having a few sprays is perfectly fine. I do see mixed results with propolis, and for that reason, I would say in times of this flu, do not do the propolis from Natural Beekeepers. I know many of you bought the propolis from us. put that on hold unless, like I said, unless you know it's a cold, then it's definitely going to help you. You can use it later when all of that is over, this craziness. That's going to be really helpful. All right. Another one I want to talk about is, actually, let me ask you this, because I did talk about elderberry already, and so there's some new things I want to share with you. The short version is that it's perfectly fine, okay, to use it, and the whole cytokine thing is completely taken out of context and the way the study was done. And I have more information on that here. Let me ask you whether you want me to talk about elderberry or not, and then I can circle back to this. Because if you already know the answer, if you already know the story behind it, then I might as well move on to other things. So don't put just yes, because I'm asking you so many questions as I'm doing this. It's hard for us to know what did you say yes to. So just put there, talk about elderberry or something like that, so we know what you're referencing. Another one I want to mention is quercetin. So that's another one that just came to my attention. I mean, I think most of us as a nutritionist, we know that quercetin is a beautiful bioflavonoid, very anti-inflammatory, but it specifically also has great affinity right now for being antiviral. So you can either do this as a supplement form, or you can surround yourselves with, guess what? A lot of really great foods that are the highest in quercetin. Let me give you the list. It will be peppers, yellow and green, onions, red and white. And if you're making a bone broth, also use the skin of the onion, put that in your bone broth, because that's where a lot of the quercetin is concentrated. So don't take the skin off. Shallots, asparagus, cooked, cherries, tomatoes, red apples, red grapes, broccoli, kale, red leaf lettuce, berries of all types, cranberries, blueberries, raspberries, and green tea. Okay, so those are the foods that are highest. So surround yourselves with those, and don't be one of those people who eats frozen pizza and then goes and runs and buys supplements. It's never gonna work all that great. So another one I've got two more before we get into handling food. And let me actually just do a quick break and see what are the questions that we have. Okay. Elderberry gummy. Cheryl, I would not do elderberry gummy. That's just full of sugar and typically a lot of preservatives. Please don't do gummies. If you're doing elderberry, just get a really nice supplement, like Gaia, for example, sells a wonderful elderberry syrup, or buy dried elderberries if you can still get them, and make your own syrup. Super simple to make. Don't buy gummies. Okay, so let's take a look at, okay, so everybody's saying talk about elderberry. Okay. So let me just give you some key takeaways. And by the way, I think we're gonna turn this video into a blog post, so that as new research comes in, we can kind of change things around and keep updating things. I think that will be helpful for you, I guess. But for now, this is just a video. So, all right, let me start off with elderberry. So first of all, let's just acknowledge the fact that from an herbalist perspective, in herbal tradition, elderberry has been used for centuries by midwives, by shamans, by medicine men and medicine women, village herbalists, as the go-to herb when you're coming down with a cold, when somebody has a viral infection, when somebody is not well, as a prevention, when somebody had respiratory problems, right? It was a trusted and well-supported botanical. So, with a lot of traditions, also comes a lot of precautions. Like we all know that there's certain things you don't do. Like, for example, since I'm going to talk about later about nettles, might as well tell you about nettles. For example, we know very well with nettles is that if nettles go into seed, you don't pick them anymore, right? And you don't consume them, because they're going to create a lot of health issues, including urinary problems. And they really do. And there's a whole science behind it now, but traditionally every herbalist, like a village herbalist, will tell you, don't pick it when it's in seed. And so, so with elderberries, like in herbalism, we've never had like the kind of precaution that was communicated or it was documented like something, it's part of the oral tradition was passed on. So that's something to think about. It reminds me a little bit of like, meditation was very dismissed by Western science until recently, right? So, and then now we have all this research behind it. So now we take it very seriously, like what meditation can do. So it's the same thing I feel like with elderberry, is that now we're beginning to do all these experiments, right? Studies, and then misinterpret things. So here's that experiment that happened, was that in that experiment, they concluded that the cytokines increased by 1.3 to 6 times. And just to give you a context, if you run a marathon, your cytokines will increase 100 times, because there's a time of stress that happens. The other thing is that, the other thing to consider is to name something a cytokine storm. The cytokines need to be increased by 4 to 5,000 times. Okay. This is not what happened with this study. This study, cytokines only increased by 1.3 to 6 times, not 4,000 times, which can be called a storm. And quite frankly, if somebody is having a cytokine storm, they should be taken to the hospital, and then this is an ICU treatment and not a elderberry time to give elderberry. So the other thing is to remember is that the elderberries were only used. Okay, so the elderberry here, the only so you have to remember, also understand cytokines is that, not just remember, but maybe learn, is the cytokines, you have the inflammatory ones, you have the anti-inflammatory ones, and then you have the modulators, who are like communicating between the two sides. And the interesting thing is that the experiment was done only on the inflammatory cytokines, and they never measured the anti-inflammatory cytokines. The elderberry also is known to stimulate. So very biased way of looking at things. And furthermore, one more other thing I want to mention about elderberry, that after that, there were a number of different studies done, including influenza patients, that show significant improvement and not worsening of their symptoms, right? So if it's true that elderberry was creating a cytokine storm, then those influenza patients would have not recovered. And I want to share with you the Dropbox that Tyler shared with you. One of them is right. Okay, let me just get out of this. And so one of the studies that I put in here, it's also from Dr. David Brady, is this one right here. So you can read this in more detail. Will elderberry induce a cytokine storm? That was written by Dr. Jacqueline Chase, who is the medical director of Emerson Ecologics. Emerson is one of the leading supplement companies as well, and they're more of a backhand. I don't think you see them more on the front end. Anyway, really interesting article. So I just gave you the cliff notes of what it is, and I hope this was helpful, just to give you the sense of assurance that elderberry is not going to induce cytokine storm. If anything, is going to help you. And if for whatever reason it doesn't agree with you, or you just fear it, you don't like it, that's why I'm doing these Facebook Lives, to tell you about all these other things that you can be doing, rather than be just getting hung up over one elderberry. There's so many other things that we can do. And in my previous Facebook Lives, I talked about astragalus. You can do andrographis. I don't know whether it's still available. I'm doing andrographis right now. That's one of my favorites. You can do echinacea. Again, echinacea is not for everyone. It can overstimulate the Th1 part of the immune system. So for example, someone like me and a lot of people here with Hashimoto's disease, you might not feel that great after doing echinacea. So, just to be very mindful of that. So you don't want to be just downing every herb. Also, if you are experimenting and bringing in a new herb to your protocol, I will highly encourage you to try it first in a small dose and see how you feel before you start chugging it down, okay? Okay, so we've settled, okay? So I've got two other things for you. Nettles, and I want to talk a little bit about copper. Nettles, interestingly, there's also something I just learned from the webinar that Designs for Health organized, was that nettles activate CD8 T cells, often called the cytotoxic T lymphocytes, or CTL. Okay, it's kind of technical, which are very important in our immune defense against intracellular pathogens, including viruses and bacteria. The reason why intracellular pathogens right now are really is something that we really care about is because that really affects the lungs. And probably effective in the beginning and the end of a viral infection. So basically what you can do is a couple of things. Either get a nettle tincture, or you could be doing a nettle tea. So just buy the herbs. You can buy it from on Amazon from Starwest or Frontier, or you can get it from Mountain Rose Herbs. Just get it organic. And the way you do it is that, I don't have a proper demo here, but if you're infusing that in a jar like this, you want to put about a third of the jar of herbs, and the rest of it you infuse it with hot water, but not boiling, because when you put boiling water into nettles, then you're killing the vitamin C. Close the jar, leave it overnight, and then strain it and drink it first thing in the morning. That's it. That's simple. So that's yet another tool you can put in your box, and it's a really lovely tea to be drinking. So copper is the last thing I want to talk about. Really important in cellular immunity, immune system modulation. I suggest not to supplement it because copper can also be toxic. But what you can do though is to get a dose of 4 to 8 milligrams a day, all you have to do is just consume a bit of cacao. If you're doing chocolate, it's like 80% or more cacao, dark chocolate. Nuts and seeds, they all contain copper. So if you, again, it kind of goes back to the concept of you keeping a varied diet full of really nice green vegetables, fresh vegetables, green leafy vegetables, asparagus, peppers, a bit of cacao, nuts and seeds, some liver for the vitamin A, you should be in a really good place. Okay, so that is I've got just one more thing I want to share with you about handling food, and as well as about going shopping and sanitizing your food when you get back home. We actually have I found a really great video last night. Is posted on CDC's YouTube channel. So before I do that, let me just go over. Tyler, if you could let me know what are the questions that are coming in. Cheryl, why not propolis? Yeah, so propolis kind of fell into the category of potentially causing the interruption of the interferon part of the immune system. And interferon is what is gonna be fighting off the coronavirus. And what propolis does is there is some research that showed that it could interfere with that. And so I'm just saying that to be on the safe side. If you're preventing specifically, if you're trying to create a prevention against corona, but if you just have a regular cold, propolis is actually phenomenal for that. How much elderberry syrup daily? That's a good question. So, it's 2 tablespoons 2-3 times a day is perfect. That will give you the protection that you need. And if you're buying it from, that's if you make your own. If you are buying it from like Gaia has got a wonderful elderberry, then look at their prescribed amount. And quite honestly, with elderberry, you can't really overdo it. And so, especially if you have an onset of cold, like you're coming down with something, this is where we typically tend to put a little bit on a higher dose to kind of, address it, stop it in its tracks, and then taper down. So, a lot of times I buy herbs, and let's say if it says 2 teaspoons 3 times a day, I'll do probably 4 teaspoons, just double that. And I'm talking here about really safe foods, not, I would never do that with, like, for example, with zinc. Like, you don't want to be doubling up on zinc. You don't want to be overdoing vitamin A, that's for sure. Cheryl was saying, I just got the Shizandra. Is it okay for Hashimoto's? Absolutely, yeah. How much should I do daily? So follow Cheryl. It depends on what form you got it in. Whether it's a tincture, whether it's in a pill form. So the best thing to do is, for example, if you got it as a tincture, then just follow the amount that's prescribed on the bottle. Elizabeth is asking celery juice. I haven't seen any research on celery juice, so can't really comment on that. Cynthia is saying, I have hair loss due to thyroid, or having no thyroid could not Could not having enough vitamin A be the reason? Cynthia, so I have hair loss due to thyroid. So yeah, so it can definitely be due to the thyroid or insufficient thyroid hormone. Even if you don't have your thyroid, it's a longer conversation here, so I don't want to spend too much time on the thyroid here today. But I mean, you can test your vitamin A levels, but it's really not often you get people with low vitamin A levels having a problem with. Is what I was saying earlier is vitamin A can cause excess vitamin A can cause hair loss. So unless you're supplementing like crazy, you know, I don't think vitamin A is the problem. It's probably thyroid is the issue. So I would work on that. What's a receptor blocker? Jenny is asking. Receptor blocker is, so the cell, every cell has a number of receptors to receive different things, hormones and any compounds, right? So in a cell, when you have a receptor, the receptor is like, I was using the analogy earlier, like a door to your house. So the cell, imagine a cell is your house, and the receptor is where the virus gets in, and that's your door, right? So if you leave your door open, the virus kind of comes in. If your receptor is open, door is open, the virus can easily come in and penetrate the cell. If you put consuming substances that can block the receptor, then you're closing that door, and then the virus cannot get into the cell and creates the damage like it does, for example, to people with coronavirus, which is in the lungs predominantly. That's how they die actually from, unfortunately, from a total lung failure. And Forsyth saying, what about taking our winter syrup? I had some a while ago and I've been taking every day. Wonderful. Wondering about elderberry part. Yeah. So, and I think I've already explained the elderberry part. That's not an issue at all. Absolutely, you can do the winter syrup. The only thing that the winter syrup doesn't have that this has is that it doesn't have the peel of the orange, right? And so what you can easily do, and is there's actually something that I was wondering, because the winter syrup actually we use the peel originally, right? But then you strain it. The question is, does hesperidin, that's the compound, that's the ACE2 blocker, does it get from the peel into the acidic environment? I don't know the answer to that. And so, it could be yes, it could be no. But if you want to be sure you get the benefit of hesperidin, I would suggest that, doing the winter syrup, I think it's wonderful. Tyler, if we could post the recipe also for the winter syrup that we're referencing here. But I would also incorporate this thing here as well with the peel. Cheryl did tincture. Can you just remind me what we were talking about? Tincture about what? Nettles, or was it elderberry? Elderberry tincture? That's very unlikely because elderberry is water soluble, so it won't be a tincture. Nicole is saying, what are your thoughts on chaga and reishi? I love it. Absolutely. So chaga, reishi, turkey tails as well. We wrote a whole piece on that as well. And yeah, they're full of beta-glucans that are just polysaccharides that are, sorry, my dog is like, stop talking, let's go for a walk. Because I've been, like I said, I've been on calls and talking since 6 a.m. So the answer is yes, absolutely. And you can also incorporate turkey tails, also fantastic. Also our shiitake mushrooms, maitake mushrooms. Shiitake, you can quite easily get that in supermarkets. So chop them up, just saute them with some nice kale, a bit of olive oil and some spices. Oh, Shizandra. Okay, you already answered. Okay, so Shizandra tincture. All right, that's what she was taking. Awesome. Okay, so hey, you guys, I hope this is helpful. You have access to the Dropbox, so you can poke around there and see the stuff. But also, we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna create a recipe for you so you can be a little bit more confident with making this. But in the meantime, like I said, earlier, it's pretty easy to make. And yeah, we're gonna also write a blog post out of this call so that we can have everything in one place. And I just want to tell you, there's no certainty of anything that is that is recommended right now, except that I think there's a lot of really good common sense. And that is also, even if you get really overwhelmed with who is saying what about what's the dosage of different supplements, vitamins, minerals, I also want to kind of pull you back and say, there's some really wonderful things you can do that can also keep you safe. And that is really keeping a really varied diet, anti-inflammatory diet. If you have access to a sauna, that was the other thing I want to share with you. I was so 2 weeks ago on a Saturday, actually on a Friday night, we got together with my friends and we were all having a Zoom dinner. I was like, new thing, right? Zoom dinner. And I ended up having like maybe 3 glasses of wine. I typically don't drink that much, but it was kind of fun. And on Saturday afternoon, I started feeling really crap. And on Sunday, I felt really bad. And so I induced fever, right? And why did I do that? Because viruses do not live in high temperatures, they die off. And the reason why in the first place we have fever is to actually, the body's immune system raises a fever so to kill the virus or bacteria, any pathogen for that matter. So taking ibuprofen and Tylenol and all that might not be such a great idea because you're kind of lowering the temperature and you're prolonging the process of healing. So I induced my own high body temperature, induced my own fever, if you will, by I started getting feverish for sure, but I just got it even higher. So I sat in the hot tub first, and I went in the sauna. I sat in the sauna about 40 minutes. And then I drank throughout the entire Sunday. I drank ginger tea with yarrow, and both of them are very heating. They make you perspire a lot. They raise body temperature. By Monday morning, I woke up and it was like, boom, gone. I was like $1 million. So the last thing I want to share, if we can just pop that link over, Tyler, to that wonderful video that physician has done for CDC, showing you how to disinfect things. And also with that, I have a quick announcement. I'll show this to you in a second, but so watch that video. It's a 15-minute video. He shows how to disinfect your food when you bring it back home from a grocer. There might be a shortage of some of the things he's talking about right now in the video, but be aware if you have some alcohol at home, like like ethanol, that it's a really good time now to pull it out and start using it on handles and spray your food with that. So that's what I've been doing with my vegetables. I spray them with alcohol, leave them out for half an hour, and then I wash them down. I just also want to share with you. Yeah, thanks, Tyler. So that's the grocery video. So post that. Highly recommend to watch it. Just also on the last note, I just want to share with you, we were gearing up and I was going to tell you all about it, how excited I am that my team and I are rolling out this new skincare product, right? Line of skincare line. And obviously, right now with this mood, and we are not going to do that. Number 2, our factory has shut down because they are not allowed to manufacture anything other than essential products, they call it. So we decided to, do what we can and bring a product that is so scarce right now, and that's hand sanitizer. So we've got a big order in, and it's interesting because there's going to be a total, like a CDC compliant sanitizer got 70% of alcohol, glycerin, and xanthan gum, nothing else. We're going to teach you how to put your own essential oil so you can make your own favorite smells. But we wanted to keep it really clean and simple because not everybody likes scents, and some people are very sensitive to scents. And so we're gonna be bringing that in to our community probably in a couple of weeks. And it's really interesting. I'll just give you the behind the scenes information that there is no shortage of ethanol per se. The problems are the bottles, and so most of the plastic bottles come from China. Because China has been shut down for a number of months, nothing is coming out from there. And so suddenly bottles became like gold. And, that's why when you see our hand sanitizer is going to be in a black bottle, I know, not perfect, but, we do what we can just to be able to pull off something and provide at least some kind of a solution. Yeah, I think Tyler, I'm going to skip that part because it all is covered in the video. So one of the cool things about the video, it talks about how to wash your fruits, that Corona doesn't stick to the food, which is really great, but it sticks to wrappers. It doesn't survive when you cook it. And then how long it stays on different surfaces. That's a really interesting one. Like, for example, metal, it stays on metal for 12 hours. It stays on cardboard for 48 hours. It stays on plastic for 72 hours. And by the way, there is this information. Did you guys see how this whole info went around saying how there was virus that was found on the cruise ship, right? So I looked it up a little bit more. After 17 days, they still found the virus, they call it, right? And so again, the media took it and blew it up, and so we were like, so everybody's now it's like, oh crap, right? Like this thing can live a lot longer. Well, it turned out that it's not completely correct because it's a viral VRN. Which is not a complete virus, and by itself wouldn't really do any harm. So thank God. I think we can go back to the initial, life on surfaces that I just given you, and the 17 days, it's not correct. So this is really important. Patricia is asking, does the cleaner have to have alcohol? Yes. So according to CDC, I was thinking of using Thieves Cleaner. I don't know what's in Thieves Cleaner. For sure, the Thieves essential oils is in it, but the question is what else is in it. Yeah, so it's a different that's what CDC's requirement is, that you've got to have alcohol and it has to be over 60%. Can I use vodka as a cleaner? No alcohol in stores. Yeah, so vodka has 40% of alcohol, so it's not, unfortunately, that's not gonna do the job. Yeah, okay. All right, you guys, I'm gonna take a break, and I hope this session was helpful for you. You have learned something new and has given you a little bit of clarity and direction. And this isn't, and I know this can be a very confusing time right now with all the different recommendations. I think it's like, at the end of the day, it's your health and it's your decision, and you're gonna pick your sources. Sometimes also listening to many sources can be also very overwhelming. So maybe streamline what you're listening to, and I think always use a lot of common sense, and that is maintaining your immune system, and really good diet, getting plenty of sleep. If you can get some sauna time, rebounding time, movement is gonna be as important, even if not more important, than just focusing on supplements. Okay. All right, everybody, have a great rest of the day. Wishing you a wonderful weekend, and we'll connect with you next week. Bye for now.